we recording?
Yes, I'm going to use this as the intro to the video.
Did you say yes?
Are you leaving?
Yes.
Or are you working here?
We're recording? I need to hang up and try this again. It's not a live stream, right?
So first of all, I just wanted to say that Whitney and I have known each other for a very, very long time. How many years has it been already? Let's see. We met in like 2004.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, it's been like almost 15 years.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah. And so we met in college. We went to Yale, or a tiny school in New Haven that nobody's ever heard of before. And we were in the all-senior, all-female a cappella group, Women Rhythm, which I guess is like the sister parallel group to the Whiffenpoofs, which of course have a much longer history since they're men.
And they've been around in that school longer. We've been around as long as women were allowed to go to Yale. Come on.
Exactly. So
it's some like hardcore nerdy Pitch Perfect stuff right there on history.
And you actually had done a lot of a cappella before then. WIM was my first experience coming to a cappella, and Whitney was the business manager for the group and was excellent at it. Booked us an amazing tour, called all the alumni and made sure that we had places to stay. When we circumnavigated the globe on our all senior tour at the end of our year,
that was
we played some amazing places.
Oh,
what countries did we hit?
Well, all through Europe, which was amazing. I mean, we definitely did we did the UK and we did France and we did Spain and it's been 15 years. I remember we were in Japan, right?
Yes, that was amazing.
And we were in
Hong Kong
during
monsoon season.
I remember us running around Hong Kong, like jogging. Do you remember us like working out?
And I basically like fell down a manhole while we were jogging. That was fun.
It was amazing.
We saw a lot of streakers, or a lot of men flashed us on that tour for some reason. That was like our weird thing that kept happening to us.
Yeah, let's not invite that back into our.
Yeah, we don't want any more like weird men flashing us energy.
And we came all the way back around to Hawaii and California, which was amazing.
And we went to the Cheesecake Factory, which was a great way to come back to the U.S.
It's very American.
Yes, we had some big cheeseburgers and margaritas. And and I remember when I first met you, I hated you because you were very loud and strong and opinionated and
obnoxious. Is that the...
I was not going to use that word. No. No, but Whitney has always had a very strong, powerful voice, and so we've been in a lot of situations where little old ladies have shushed us. But
a lot in Japan.
Her amazing singing technique.
Yeah.
And I think that you're such a fun person, and I think that's probably one of the things that people really love about your teaching style too, is that it's just fun to hang out with you. And of course, you have a lot of singing knowledge and can impart a lot of technique. So we knew each other in college, and then we also, I think, dated a bunch of really crappy men.
Yep.
And saw each other through those experiences.
And really great songs about those crappy men.
Exactly. We wrote a lot of breakup songs. And then we both met our now husbands, and we've known each other through the birth of our children, and we both went to each other's weddings and sang at each other's weddings. Whitney came all the way to Israel to perform at Last, which was the highlight of my wedding. It was really, really lovely.
Oh, an amazing trip.
Yeah. And then when Whitney started writing her own music and started performing in New York, we did some shows together. And then Whitney moved back to California because she is a California girl.
Yeah.
And opened her vocal coaching studio, which is now franchised, has several locations, right?
Yeah, we're technically not franchised because we are all owned by, we're all centrally owned, but it's, we have 3 studios in San Francisco, Songbird Studios. We've spent the last, I've been teaching now for over a decade, but I've spent 6 years, almost 6 years building Songbird, and really trying to figure out how to bring on amazing teachers and grow like a community that singers can come. And it's really voice specific and super special. And we're highly specialized with like contemporary singing and preparing a range of different types of singers, ages, different genders, different skill levels, different, whether you're a hobby singer or professional or aspiring professional, we do what we can to help aid you on that journey in the Bay Area. So that's been a huge part of my life over the last 6 years.
That is so cool. And you do a lot of really interesting events too. Like you have people come and perform, and you do showcases with your students and like songwriting nights. There's always something really fun going on at your locations. And Whitney's been a huge mentor for me in my vocal coaching practice when I decided to make that transition into teaching. She's really helped teach me what it's all about and show me the ropes. So I thought it'd be really, really fun to have you come on my channel, seeing as how you're such an expert in this field. And I actually put out a request on Instagram for some questions for you. We're going to try to get through a lot of material today. So
let's do it as much as we can do.
Yeah, so I was really, really happy with the response that we got. So I'm going to read you some of the questions. And if you don't mind doing like a little rapid fire expert.
Okay, I'm ready.
Response round here.
Let's
okay,
do
so
it.
The first question comes from Sandra, and she wanted to know your best tips for fixing out of pitch singing.
A lot of so it really has to do with how out of pitch are we talking. And a lot of people think, oh, I sing so out of tune. Oh, I'm tone deaf. I hear that all the time. People think they're tone deaf. And really you want to get in front of an expert or a vocal coach or a singing teacher to really assess where you're at and what's going on with your hearing and your singing. Because a lot of people who think they're tone deaf actually just had some sort of experience earlier in their life where they were shut down. Their voice was, criticized by somebody, they were laughed at in choir, and they stopped experimenting with their voice at that point. And a lot of times what happens then is when you shut down that experimentation and that vocalizing because of shame or embarrassment or fear, you'll get not as comfortable using your voice. You don't know how to use it, and you're kind of like all over the place. So you don't, it sort of limits that exploration. When that happens, you shut off that learning, and then you therefore lose a lot of what you could be gaining if you just continued on that exploration journey. Because everyone vocalizes. We all have vocal folds. We all sing, or we all speak and use our voice throughout our lives. So singing is just a variation of that. And understanding and hearing where our pitch is really something we all naturally, intuitively learn as children and start to experiment with. So when you're shut down emotionally like that at a young age, you stop and start to tell yourself, oh, I can't sing. Oh, I'm tone deaf. Oh, this, oh, that, right? So for me, my biggest question is are you really having trouble with pitch, or is there a bigger issue here that we need to address, right? So a lot of times when singers will come in, if somebody says, well, I'm a terrible singer, but I love to sing, but I haven't sung in years because this thing happened, we just get started exploring again, creating sounds throughout your range. And a lot of that is, we then are building like some healthy techniques so that singers can utilize their voice throughout their range without getting caught up in some of the muscular tension or other issues that happens if you're not super comfortable with your voice. So, when it comes to like a more advanced singer who's struggling with pitch, then I always look at, okay, what's going on with their ear? Like, are they hearing things? Can we bring in some music theory and some ear training exercises to hone in on that skill and to really make sure that you're right in the center of that pitch as opposed to falling flat or sharp? But it's a really, like, you hear that question and you don't necessarily know what they're asking. And it really helps to get in front of a voice teacher who knows what they're talking about, or a vocal coach or a singing teacher, so that they can assess where you're at. Because sometimes our self-assessment when it comes to singing and voice is tied up in some emotional stuff, and we don't always have a clear look. That's a short answer, but it's broad.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. It reminds me of, both of us have little boys, and they're always like trying new sports and things. And as kids, for some reason, we allow ourselves that period of exploration. Like, we don't expect to be good at everything right away. It's like my kids are taking skateboarding lessons now, and they have to just learn to like put one foot on the board and take little steps, and we're so allowing with children, but once we become adults, if we're not good at everything right away, we go, oh, I must be terrible at this. I'll never be good at it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That self-critic is huge. And I mean, I think about my kids sing, you know, and my 3-year-old is starting to come home from preschool and sing songs, and I love it. But I'm never thinking, oh, that was off pitch. You know, I'm never like, oh, you know, you changed keys there in your Mary Had a Little Lamb. You know, it's like, no,
Yeah.
he's exploring his range and he's figuring out like what's going on, and, you know, figuring out where it feels good to sing and moving in the middle of songs. And in time, he will start to root that in a fundamental understanding of music with exploration. But I find so many teens and adults are shut down at like a critical period of exploration that then they're frozen in that time. They continue to use their voice speaking wise, but then they've shut down that learning. So you kind of have to go back, take out the emotion, and then build that exploration back up.
Yeah, and it's so, it can't be overstated, the importance of like somebody saying one nasty thing that can like stick with you forever in your psyche. And like just every time you go to sing, you have that repeating in your head and you're just afraid to even try.
Absolutely. That's one of the hugest things I see. And because singing, like our voice is so integral to who we are as humans, right? It's so deep, like you can't tease it out from our emotions or how we feel or how we identify ourselves. It's so integrally linked. So when somebody criticizes that, or when you perceive someone as criticizing that, maybe that didn't even happen, but you perceived something that felt like a criticism, it hits you to your core sometimes. It can be really traumatic. So some of it is just peeling that away so that you have a, like, somewhere to start back, you know?
That's a great answer. So question 2, can you define the mixed voice? And this one comes from Thomas. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name. It's Tomis. Thomas.
All right. Yeah, the mixed voice. I mean, this is, so I guess I have to start by saying that everything in voice is like, there's a lot of subjectivity, and there is no widespread agreement yet among voice professionals what these register meanings are. A lot of like different genres might have, and different types of training like might have specific registers that they ascribe to, but there's a lot of overlap and amongst singers across, you know, all different genres in terms of what mix means, what belt means, what chest means, what falsetto means, what passaggio means. I mean, there's a specific meaning of a lot of that in different genres, but a lot of those terms are overlapped. So I always try to talk to my singers about what is your perception of those terms walking in, and then how can we root them in something that is factual or anatomical happening in your vocal tract, or how does that feel for you? Because what I might perceive as a mix from somebody might feel as a belt, or they might feel as a head voice or a falsetto. Like that perception of what we hear versus what we feel as a singer, they're two different things, and it's subjective across all types of voices. That being said, mix is generally assumed or meant to be some sort of in-between land between our lower, chestier, heavier sound, richer sound, and our higher, lighter head voice ear sound, right? So higher voice, lower voice. But I'm in a constant conversation with a lot of my colleagues about what terms are you using right now, and how do we root this in reality, and also be clear to singers that we're talking about metaphors here when we're talking about registers, right? Like what is actually happening. So there's basically a shift as singers sing from their lower parts of their voice to their higher parts of their voice. And some of this comes down to how we use our vocal folds and how sound is created. So I'm going to just go into that for like a second. I'm sorry if it's too nitty gritty, but we have, everyone has sort of, there are larynx right here with our vocal folds inside, right? And the vocal folds, they come together, they're really small, and they come together and oscillate and come back and forth together hundreds, sometimes thousands of times a second in order to create sound. That is how all of our speaking, all of our vocalizing, all of our singing is created. Okay. So depending on if you're singing in the lower part of your voice, we have a muscle called the thyroarytenoid muscle. Some people call it, like, abbreviate the TA muscle, that helps to drive those vocal folds together on the lower end. It is really engaged on those lower, heftier, richer sounds. As you ascend, the vocal folds have to move faster. And in order to help them do that, the larynx tilts and the vocal folds stretch and they start to move faster and faster. So that stretch is engaged by another set of muscles called the cricothyroid muscles. So those are tilting the larynx, helping to stretch the vocal folds so you can reach those higher notes. So as you get into that higher register, your cricothyroid starts to take the driver's seat or take control. It's not as simple as one is engaged and then the other is engaged. They are always working sort of in tandem. But the unique thing about those two muscle sets is they kind of do different, like contradictory things when they're contracting. So they have to, part of the challenge that singers have is navigating those two very strong muscle sets and getting them to work smoothly together as you ascend throughout your range, as opposed to, one of them being really, really, contracted. And then for instance, your TA being really strongly contracted as you start to sing higher and higher and higher. And at some point, in order to get those high notes, the TA has to let go. And then that happens quickly and you get a big break in sound. And that's when you have like a big crack or a big sound between your lower and your higher voice, if that makes sense. So when we're talking about mix, we're talking about a balance of those two muscle sets used in tandem somewhere in the middle of your range.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Great answer. Very, very good anatomical grounding of that answer.
Oh, man. I hope that your listeners are ready for some nerdy crap because we are just in it.
I love it. We've got a lot of singing nerds.